Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, new paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week, Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, and be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I am Richard Dugan, your host. And today's program, I think we're going to have some fun with this because I remember being asked and even asking this question on many occasions on this program about miracles. What is a miracle? What does it constitute? And how do you know when one's happened? Because obviously you've got to have a definition. But science, as much as a lot of people want to separate science from, I will call it the spiritual, not so much the supernatural, but the metaphysical, as being a metaphysician myself. Kind of defining these terms. Well, we're going to do that and more with Dr. Sharnael, who has written a book. I'm very intrigued by this. It's called The Science of Miracles, Remembering the Frequency of Love. And Dr. Sharnael, I want to thank you so much for joining us here on the program. I'm fascinated and really looking forward to our conversation.
Absolutely. So honored to be with you today, Richard. And thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. That was cool. Your voice is awesome. You're perfect for this.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm still working on, after 64 years on this planet, still looking for a way to cash in, but it'll come. I'm waiting for that miracle.
Yes.
And quite honestly, I'm blessed, and I think that I've lived a pretty miraculous life considering the path that I have taken. How about you? Do you feel that way these days? And have you always felt that way?
Oh my gosh. No, I did not always feel that way. I think after going to different countries and seeing how other countries and other people live, that gave me a little bit more perspective on life for sure. But we all have our days where it's just like, what's going on? And I think my own mishaps, or I guess, just choices that got me to where I got, whether it was good or bad, have all been for something. And we've all, had those opportunities to go down one way and just, maybe recalculate a little bit, and constantly recalculating. And, that's what's fun about life, is free will and being able to make choices.
Well, believe it or not, that's what my book is about. I have a book out now, just came out in September, called Choices, 5
Oh,
Steps for Life. And
congratulations.
that's really what it's all about, is choices. It's, and I've made this reference since the event that we all participate, well, most all of us participated in about a week to 10 days ago. And we all made choices. And in some instances, depending upon where you live, there were a lot of choices to make.
Yes.
But at the same time, we also live with those choices that we make. It's kind of hard not to, considering the fact that the choices that we make, they have, I don't want to say unintended consequences, but maybe unexpected results, if you will, even because we can't control the outside world. All we can do is, shall we say, control ourselves
Yes.
most of the time. There will be those who say, well, yeah, but my mind is always running and it's always doing this and that and the other thing. And I can't shut it off and it won't shut up. And so, and I was like, join the club, join the club. Um, let's define, well, I will share with you real quickly. I'll make this very brief because I want you to define this concept. Because I felt like in my life, I've been in the right place at the right time, probably almost from the beginning. It doesn't say that I haven't hurt myself along the way. What came to mind was we were on vacation, the family, the six kids and parents, and we were in Sedona, and there's a church called Church in the Rock, and it
Mhm.
has this stone wall, and it starts down very low, and then it gets higher and higher as you go up the hill towards the church. I, being the gymnast of sorts back then, decided I was going to step up onto that wall and I was going to walk up it a little ways. I wasn't going to go too far. To which my mother said, "Hey, Richard, you need to get down or you're going to fall." And within about 5 seconds, I fell face down into dirt, knocked the wind out of me. That was the only injury, was it knocked the wind out of me. So, I mean, I didn't go unscathed as I grew up any more than any other kid at that time. But when I started to work, when I started to interact with other people as I got older, going through high school and then into college, junior college, I should say, and then working, it was as if the world was, I don't want to say at my beck and call per se, but I just happened to, as I'm in college, touch base with my guidance counselor who told me about a radio station that was opening up. Next thing I know, I'm working for them. And then I'm applying for a job at another commercial station. And I mean, and my wife and I lost both of our jobs in 2006. And next thing you know, we're here in Santa Barbara. And now we've been here 18 years. And, it goes on and on and on and on and on. Would I classify that sequence of events as miracles? Or just I'm in the right place at the right time? Or was I born under a lucky star? Um, you know, because I know a lot of people, they start questioning. I've got several people that I talk with on a regular basis. They question, what am I doing here? And some of them are in a negative context. I really don't want to be here or there or the other place.
Mhm.
And my father, even after his eldest daughter's passing in 2002, he didn't want to be here anymore. And a year later, he was gone.
Yeah.
Um, and I have to wonder sometimes if our words don't manifest those kinds of events. What about that? Are those miracles? Are those I don't but first of all, I don't believe in coincidence. I rephrase that. They're coincidences, meaning they're events that coincide. But it's not something that is it's like there's a pattern there. There's a purpose there. We just may not know what it is. Anyway, I'll let you share your perspective.
Yes. So that's beautiful stories, different things there. I say coin incidences, meaning money incidences.
Oh, I
Um,
like it.
yes, but miracles are all of those things and more. I think people mostly use the term meaning that it's just something that's gonna, like some big, big, big thing, but Yeah, I am not a religious person at all. I did go to school and seminary,
Hmm.
but then I had to reverse engineer some of that programming. And um,
I like that.
yeah, so but I will say, even the word healing in scripture is used, I forget, I choose to remember how many times. And many of them, I mean, are the therapeo, meaning healing over time and action of choices, which is where we get the word therapy.
Hmm.
Um, it's still healing and it's still considered a miracle, but it's through action and choice and being God in action, making those choices, versus the 2 or 3 times that it comes up in scripture where it's actually just an instantaneous thing that didn't require therapy at all. And you mentioned the word disciple, and I mean, I mentioned the word manifestation, or the whole concept of manifestation through speaking things into existence, and or the mindset of what people may have and letting their mind go. I think most people who have a pretty good path, like you have expressed, things just seem to come together, and all these synchronicities. Usually those people have a good mindset and are disciplined with their mindset to think in that positive realm and or speak those positive things, because there is a science to creating with words and or with our thoughts. Some people may think that that's like weird and woo woo, but it's actually very accurately true, factually true. And that's why the word, going back to, I started to say disciple, the word discipline comes from disciple. And when we are disciplined with those thoughts, because those are choices too, what our thought process is, what we choose to think on, and what we choose to speak on. Um, when we can steer the tongue and steer the mindset to go into a more positive pathway, then that will create frequency levels into the biofield. We all have this biofield, bio meaning two, and that field is usually around 4 to 5 feet as far as the average person I've tested. Some people test way further, up to 21 feet. And what's the language of the field includes what you're thinking about, what you're talking about, what you're feeling. And it also is a radiation of every single cell and organ that you have in your body. And so if we have certain belief systems, that's going to send an equation out into the field. If we have certain things that we're talking about, those send equations out to the field. If we have certain feelings about a certain situation, those also send things out to the field. But the interesting thing is the heart is also magnetic. When I worked in cardiac rehab, the surgeons would talk about how they would see the blue light in surgery. I never personally saw it, but I would hear them over and over talk about this spark of blue within the heart when they would do surgery. Not every time, but many, many times. And I kind of thought, well, that's interesting. And I just kind of shelved it. But later, when I started looking about the mechanics of the law of attraction and manifesting, and then I had two pretty powerful encounters with, I don't know who these things are, but they came into my living room and there was a download of a lot of information, including what I'm talking about as far as the field and the equations and how that all works and how they radiate, and also we magnetize. And that's literally how I got the book, is through this information download. And I've been able to reverse things, meaning reverse. You said remember. When I say remember, I'm meaning to remember again, to align with God's source and its frequency. To remember and or reverse, verse meaning frequency, to make a new verse, make a new sound, and create something completely different through those choices. Because choices, believe it or not, on when you test choices are 400,000 times stronger than actual spirit. We can override spirit with our free will. That is how we were created, and that is the technology that we have. So as we move through life, if things aren't working out for you, take a look at what you're thinking, take a look at what you're feeling, take a look at what you're radiating. I think awareness is really, really key. And what's also cool, and I'll just say this, your heart is the most magnetic of all of those things mentioned. Yes, it is radiating, and yes, all those things radiate, but the heart actually pulls in what matches is in the field. So if you can think about something really positive, but if you feel crappy about it, you get like a energetic purgatory, and you can kind of get like a 2 step forward, 1 step back, where it's like you almost got the job but then it didn't go through, or you almost got the date with that dude but then he pulled out, or whatever. So
Mhm.
we can miscreate, or we can be very strategic architects with our lives. Sorry, my dog is barking.
No, I don't hear him. That's good. But it's okay. We've had programs where we've had animals walk across in front of the guest,
Ah,
in front of the camera, and so forth. And hey, we welcome them all. So
yes.
no problem whatsoever. That's interesting because I mean I love the differentiation that a lot of people have, and I have it too, between religious and spiritual. I like to define religion from the book that the religious like to beat us over the head with. True religion, as is written in the ancient text, true religion is taking care of the widows and the orphans. That is true religion. Not the cantor singing up in the balcony and incense and all of those things. I don't know what that is, other than I do happen to love ritual and ceremony. I was born and raised Catholic, so that's one of the things that I find very important, and that's something we'll talk about too, because there's an aspect of this conversation. You talk about remembering the frequency of love, and we've talked about, sound and vibration, tones, et cetera, frequency. And as I've mentioned earlier, and you alluded to as well, about words. And I say this all the time when I hear somebody say something. Doesn't matter what they say. Doesn't matter what I say. Words have power. And whether you are conscious of your intent in the words that you are using or not, whether you're conscious of it or not, those words still have power, and they go out. Now, I know that I'm not sure about mantras and affirmations and those kinds of things, um, how they play into all of this. But when you start talking about the science of miracles, science has shown, a matter of fact, there was a study done many years ago about what's called the Mozart effect. Now, I personally question why Mozart? I'm not opposed to Mozart, don't get me wrong, but why Mozart as opposed to Rachmaninoff or Beethoven or Tchaikovsky or Cohen or whoever you want to list? And yet they have shown that there are aspects of the music of Mozart that seem to, during the process of studying and so forth, seem to help the brain to process a little differently than it would without the vibration of Mozart.
Yes.
And who knows? Maybe they do better on tests and those kinds of things. Of course, then I read an article shortly thereafter that poo-pooed the whole thing. Said, no, it's a bunch of hooey. And I'm sitting here going, really? So what you're telling me is those high tension power lines that travel over my house that have a frequency that they put out when electricity is flowing through it
Yes.
have no effect whatsoever on the human body, which is also an electromagnetic a machine, if you will. Talk to us a little bit about the science behind miracles or about miracles, especially in terms of this aspect of frequency, about vibration. I mean, because we've got them going on all the time. Radio waves, AM and FM, they're floating around all the time, going through us. We just don't, we're just not a receiver of that frequency. And the list goes on of all of these different vibrations. Matter of fact, I just saw a piece about SpaceX and sonic booms. Now there's a vibration.
Yeah.
Baboom.
Yes. Well, that's really interesting. You mentioned something. I want to hit on something real quick before we go there. Is you
Please.
mentioned something about, I guess your father had lost, is that your sister?
Yeah, my eldest sister.
Your oldest sister, and he said he didn't want to be here anymore. And then sure and lo and behold, he
Yeah.
wasn't. Um, so on a science level, when we say certain key phrases, the subconscious is very literal and it doesn't understand symbolism at all. It only recognizes literal words. And when I was diagnosed with cancer in 2016, which I reversed, by the way, all natural, I did a lot of things with the terrain of my body, but one of the things that helped and was the catalyst of it expelling from my body was conscious language and those mantras that you're speaking. And when I was studying conscious language, I looked into some key phrases like saying, I doubt it, cancel clear, actually creates the body to start building phlegm in the lymphatic system for a person. Saying things like, I can't, really means I can't serve, which is usually stimulates cancer, cancel clear. Um, there's all kinds of, or I doubt it. Those things, there's all kinds of different phrasing that create different things. When I first went to a man who's no longer with us, he's actually chose to leave almost a year from now exactly, who is
Mhm.
my mentor, Robert Hennison Stevens. He did biooptic holography in my eye when I went to him back in 2016 when I was dealing with this C situation. And he looked in my eye and he saw four different, like little blue specks that had little kind of, I don't know, kind of cobwebby outside, kind of a weird speck. And he said to me, and he took a picture of my eye, he put it on a big screen where we're with like 40 different people. And he asked me this question. He said, when did you choose to die? And he knew that I had the diagnosis. Nobody else did at the thing. And matter of fact, I had been invited to go to this thing and was hoping to learn something or remember something about my life and my health to reverse. And yet that left part of my brain was just like, this probably isn't possible, but whatever, I'm going to go. And I was very nervous to leave all my holistic physical things to go to this thing in North Carolina because I was on this daily regimen of, IV therapy and ozone therapy and hyperbaric chamber and red light therapy and juicing. And I just wasn't sure if I was going to have all of that where I knew I wouldn't have most of that where I was going, but I kept muscle testing and my body said to go. So I went. Um, Now going forward, he said, when did you choose to die? And I was kind of mad at him actually because he did not know the regiment of what I had been doing for about 4 months. It was a full-time job doing all the things, going to four different doctors who all had different technology and trying to, just literally reverse the situation. And so I was a little pissed off, to be honest. I was like, seriously, like if you knew, I literally said to him, if you knew what I do every day to stay on the planet, you would not accuse me of these things and especially public in front of everybody. So I guess my ego was whatever, but he was like, no, he said these things in the eye show that you have four death wishes in the past, cancel clear. So I said, huh. And so he said, have you ever said things like, I'm done, cancel clear? And I was like, doesn't everybody say that, and he was like, well, what about I'm so over this, cancel clear? Or how about I just can't do this anymore, cancel clear. And I say cancel clear because I want to clear the energy and cancel the energy of what I've said. I'm just using this as an example. And I catch myself cancel clearing all the time because of these default programs that are still like in the subconscious that tend to come up. But I was just kind of, whoa, like, okay, I say all those things all the time in the past. And he's like, okay, I want you to say I am and I can. And so I was like, I am and I can. And then he was like, okay, I want you to say I can and I am. And so I said, I can and I am. And he was like, no, I want you to say it like you mean it. And I was like,
Yeah.
I can and I am. Remember, the heart is the magnet, right? So I had to feel it. And so he kept coaching me and saying, say it again, say it again, say it again. And I just kept saying it. And then he said, go lower. You're in your mind now. Drop to your heart. I didn't know what he was doing. I was just like, sure, whatever. I'm in front of everybody. I got to, whatever, get this over with. But the more he coached me, he said, put your me into it like your life depended on it.
Mm.
And I said, I can and I am. I can and I am. I can and I am. And when I started really saying it, I felt emotional suddenly, and I could feel myself about to cry, which I was like, what's going on? And then I started feeling discomfort in my lower region of my reproductive area, which is where they were saying was a problem. And I had to excuse myself from the stage to go to the bathroom. So I go to the bathroom. I'm literally sitting in there, and all of a sudden, all this stuff comes out.
Mm.
I was like, what in the world? Now, I've had 7 miscarriages in the past. And when I went to go see what it was that came out from my reproductive area, it was nothing I had ever seen um, until then. And my right brain was like, holy crap, that's cancer.
Mm.
My left brain was like, no way can that happen. And I was in this very quick mental battle. I had a microscope, a little like a hand, not a microscope. What do you call those little hand eye things in my pocket because we were
Oh, magnifying glass.
magnifying glass. Thank you.
Mhm.
I had one in my pocket because we were learning how to look at each other's eyes and look at our own eyes. And something intuitive inside of me, that God source me, said, go look at your eye now. I mean, understand, minutes have gone by, literally just minutes from when he had my eye on a screen. I go look literally in the bathroom still, seconds away at my eye. And now those blue dots have now turned into this like hook type thing. All 4 of them had a hook.
Mm.
And I was like, what is going on? So I literally leave the bathroom. I go running to Bob and I said, oh my God, you will not believe what just came out of me. And he literally made a poop joke. And I said, no, not that. And he kind of laughed and I said, look at my eye, look at my eye. And he looked at my eye and then he put it on the screen and he said, that is a shepherd's rod or a healing hook. He said, you're reversing it, honey.
Mm.
And I just started bawling. I was like, and to be honest, I still had 3, 4 more days there, one with travel, and my mind wrestled with, did that happen? Did it not happen? I mean, I'm a data person, I'm a teacher, I'm a scientist. I like stats. I want to see things to believe it, which is not necessarily spiritual at all. Which more spiritually is faith without seeing and
Mhm.
believing without seeing evidence. But when I got home, I went to not just one, but all 4 doctors because that's how statistically inclined I am with science to make sure all 4 of them gave me the clear. And they said, we don't know what's going on, but you're healed. We don't see cancer. And I called Bob and I just said, isn't that weird? Like they can't find anything. And he was like, how about change that into I am healthy, I am clear, I am divine health. Like instead of speaking what you aren't, voice your choice. And even saying things like, I'm not cancel clear is a death wish because literally you're saying that you're not cancel clear. So when your dad made those statements and had those belief systems, the subconscious was like, okay. And it just started the ball rolling because it's like we are telling our subconscious is the one that rules everything. And when we come into agreement with the negative defaults of those or whatever those belief systems are, that's what truly creates.
Mm. I find all of this extremely fascinating, especially with my connection to kinesiology going back to I want to say the mid 1980s. And it was a rather interesting way I found out about it. I worked for 15 years for a Christian radio station back then. And I met this woman. Her name was Carol Kepler. And she told me about and taught me about what she referred to as both kinesiology, but also muscle testing. And then, of course, not long after that, I found out about a gentleman who, back in the 30s, 20s, and 30s, had developed this device that was able to um, identify the frequencies of the various diseases, whether you call them cancer or whatever they call them. And he developed this device. It was called the
Royal rice.
Royal Raymond Rice.
Royal rice.
Yeah,
Yes.
Royal
I
Rice.
love rice. Yes.
I was actually asked back in the early 2000s, I think it was 2005, to be the narrator for the DVD that they put out. And so I that was really exciting.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah,
What?
yeah. And and then of course, crystals. I remember hearing all of the stuff about the impending harmonic convergence, and I think it was '87, it was the
Yes.
late '80s, and crystals, and then the whole aspect with Jonathan Goldman and his wife Andy, and their whole aspect of sound healing. They have a World Sound Healing Day on Valentine's Day, February 14th every year. We do a program on that and just kind of catch up and so forth. But I mean, the list just goes on and on. There are so many different modalities. But I wanted to touch upon something here that I'm curious about your perspective on this. I was interviewing a gentleman. He was sharing his story, and we got into the conversation about how he had stomach cancer. And he ended up having a very large portion of his stomach removed. And he's still alive and well, and he's able to eat and process and all that kind of stuff. And he's been free and clear of the cancer. But one of the things that I learned was that I'll say, take on certain conditions for a reason. There are people who will put on massive amounts of weight to protect themselves because of the trauma they experienced years ago. There are other conditions, whether it's high blood pressure or high blood sugar or glaucoma, in my case, all three, and so forth. And the conversation goes towards asking the question, why did you take this on? What was the reason you took this on? So I asked him, have you ever thought about why stomach cancer? All right, why did you have a disease in the stomach area? And he said, I had never thought about that. And as we're talking and he's processing this, he's coming up with, oh yeah, when I was a kid growing up, and he shared some of the stories about the food in the house and the dinners and Thanksgiving and those kinds of things. And it made perfect sense to him then why he chose to have that happen, because of the traumas. The removal of those diseases notwithstanding, doctor, have you thought about that in the context of whether it would be the cancer, whether it be the miscarriages, or any of the other diseases that you have healed yourself from? Is that of any importance whatsoever of what we're talking about here in terms of miracles and what have you? Is that really important to understand why I took this on? Why do I have no vision in my left eye? Why I have I'm taking medication, of course, for high blood pressure and blood sugar. Thankfully, those are the only ones I'm dealing with. Uh, uh, is that part of any of the part of this process as far as you're concerned?
Absolutely. Like I mentioned, with cancer, it's usually this overwhelming feeling of I can't serve, or feeling like I can, but I can't.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and usually it's people who are just way stressed out and feeling overwhelmed and not able to feel like they're doing enough, no matter, even though they're doing a lot. With stomach issues, I've seen a pattern of people who they can't stomach something, and it turns into that. With diabetes, usually it's missing out somewhere in their life of the sweetness of life. Bob would say, that's what Bob would say. He also talks about vision, and he refers to different mantras, I am God's eyes seeing, or I see God everywhere I go, or I see secure everywhere I go, and things like that for mantras to reverse I things. Or I see God in everything, or things like that. We have seen people reverse different things using these mantras, but it's not just saying the words, because we can all regurgitate anything. It's about meaning what you say. And that's why when people are around other people, like you yourself, I believe you, like the frequency of your voice I mentioned, is authentic. You mean what you say. You're not just saying things to say things. You actually mean what you say. And there is a resonance to that. There's a felt frequency to that verse. And for those who live in authenticity, they resonate with you because we feel you literally, versus someone who just maybe says things, um, you know, whether it's a political candidate or anyone, it's just like blah, 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 almost like a script, but they mean
Mhm.
none of it. And you can tell that it's just like fake. And there's definitely a frequency um, to authenticity. I always thought that love was the highest frequency. But in my experience, looking at scalar waves, and if I'm sure you've studied David Hawkins and his consciousness path and his map, I don't agree with everything that he adheres to, but that map I use a lot with kinesiology. And one of the things that I see is when people are authentic, it actually trumps love. And my theory is that embodying truth or living true is the highest form of love, because it's, again, going back to ancient scriptures, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. And I looked up, well, first of all means all, but when I looked up glory, it's the manifestation of God's source. It's the manifestation of miracles. So
Mm.
when we eat and when we drink and whatever we do everything that covers everything. When we're living authentic, there is a frequency that goes out into this field of equations. And when those frequencies go out, we can only get a match to that. As long as there isn't anything in the subconscious that's taken away from those equations, which sometimes there is. There could be, like I said, you could think you want something, but your mouth says something else. You
Mm.
can feel you want something, but your head says something else. So, those battles in the mind, the best way to change those things is by replacing. If I said to you right now, think about pink elephants, or don't think about pink elephants. I'm sorry, I did it wrong, but don't think about pink elephants. People automatically think about pink elephants. But if you replace it quickly with, now think about a swing set. How fast can you time travel with thinking about a swing set, instead of you literally changing your timeline by creating a different image? Because imagery is so important. The word imagination is to image a nation. And so I only voice my choice as much as possible when I do. And I only imagine those things that I choose for my outcome, instead of, what may default as something negative. I'll add this, and I'd love to hear your feedback. But when I had this encounter, um, my family, and I love my family so much. One of the things that something bad would happen, my family would say, well, there's always something. And they meant that in the negative, meaning the
Mhm.
heart was in agreement that this sucks. It wasn't a, hey, yay, something's awesome happening. It was the heart behind that
Yeah.
was, this freaking sucks. for you and everybody. And so that was in the field. And one day I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about Murphy's Law. That was a big thing in the 70s, and I grew up in the 70s, and maybe it wasn't a big thing, but it was a big thing in my family. And the Murphy's Law states that anything bad that can happen is going to happen, cancel clear. And I just thought that is such a sucky program, and it's in there somewhere, cancel clear. I'm like, I got to get rid of that one. And so I looked to really think of something to replace it, going back to replacing. And I was watching something one day, and something flashed across. It was Phil, Dr. Phil of all things. And he said the best way to judge or predict the future is to look at the past. And I thought, what if your past was sucky? You know what I mean? It's like, I get the idea, but maybe that's not the best program either. And I was looking for a replacement, so I asked God and me, like, what is the replacement? Show me the replacement. And literally about an hour later, I ran across something, and it was Abraham Lincoln, and it was a little meme of Abraham Lincoln. And he said, the best way to predict the future is to create it. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, that is something I can put my frequency to. That's something I can come into agreement. So when something bad would happen, I stopped calling those people that would give more energy to my field of, yeah, that sucks. More is going to happen, because all that would do is just generate more negatives in my equations, and then give power to it, because I would have come into agreement with it too. I had to find people that would only see me in the outcome I wish, someone that understood miracles, someone that believed in victory for me in a different outcome, and was accountable to that, like someone that would hold me accountable to keeping my mindset with that replacement of only good things happen to me. The universe has my back. God has my back. God and me has my back. Only God in action is present here. And when I started having different mantras, and just, I have a 2 or 3 that are always like kind of in my pocket, kind of like if you picture a cowboy with his guns, it's like, I got mine right here, loaded, locked and loaded. When something happens, it's like, only God touches me, only God hears me, only God sees me, only God speaks to me. Or God is the only power and presence acting here. When something starts happening where I don't like the looks of it, I demand and command miracles now. God is the only power and presence acting here. And you'll see a shift. I've literally been behind a door bathroom with an abuser outside beating on the door. Terrible situation I had myself in. And I could not say a word in the bathroom, hiding. I had to, inside my mind, scream as loud as I could without words, but in my mind, say, only God touches me, only God hears me, only God sees me, only God speaks to me. And I did it for about 10 minutes, and all of a sudden the beating stopped on the door. And I was like, is the coast clear? Only God touches me. Only God hears me. Oh, and I walk out, and that person who was just about to do something terrible completely had a change of heart and mindset, and was writing me a check for some money that they owed me from years ago. And was like, oh yeah, by the way, here's your check, and I'll see you later. Bye. And I was like, what just happened? Like, did I just do that? Holy cow, look how powerful we are. This is the DNA that we have. This is our inheritance. This is what we can do every day, every minute, all the time.
That's pretty powerful. We're talking to Dr. Sharnael. She's the author of a book that I think you're going to want to get a hold of, because it's fascinating in this conversation. The Science of Miracles, Remembering the Frequency of Love. And you are listening to Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, here with Dr. Sharnael. She is unlocking the mysteries in regards to the science of miracles, remembering the frequency of love. And we are talking here. You've brought up a couple of things in the last segment that I want to touch real quick upon. First of all, in terms of the people that we allow into our lives. And I talk about, and have for many years, about we have the freedom of discernment as to who we allow into our lives and who we say bye-bye. Thank you so much for being a part of this program, and You go on and write your own script for your own show, because you're not the energy that you are bringing into my life. I don't want, and that can be either on a personal level, face to face. It can be in a Zoom situation. It can be through technology, through social media, whatever the case may be. I still find it fascinating how people who get bullied online for some silly reason think that they need to keep that account. They need to stay there instead of deleting the account and just starting over, or saying, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm done with social media because I'm not going to put up with this. I don't have to. But that, you talked about, looking at the comment made about looking at our past will, determine our future. We talk about choices and knowledge of those choices to help make our dreams come true, and how the saying about have we the choices that we've made up to this point have determined where we are right now. And I even go back as far as even the choices that I made as a little kid at 5, 6, 7, 8 years old have brought me here right now at the age of 64 talking with you. Now, that sounds pretty far-fetched, but remember, there is sort of a domino effect, and that's how that works. But then there's the other part of it. The choices I make from this point forward will determine where I will be in the future. And then one of my guests added this addendum. Those choices that you are going to make from this point forward will be based upon what you believe your future will be, or what the future will be. And I've always been an optimist. I've had those flashes of pessimism, and I get rid of them as quickly as I can, because I'm a firm believer that there's always room for improvement. And where I am right now is absolutely fantastic and wonderful and beautiful. And that's why I have struggled with the phrases. On the one hand, you'll hear America is the greatest country in the world. And then you'll hear, on the other hand, that we need to make it great again. Why? Now, I was sharing this with someone. They said, well, think about that from what you've already said. There's always room for improvement. But to make it great again implies, or if not out and out says, it's not great now. And I disagree. It is. But at the same time, I don't want to sit here and make us superior over anybody else. I live in Santa Barbara, California, one of the most beautiful places on earth. It's fantastic. I moved from the hot spot of Phoenix, Arizona. I'm glad I did. Now, it has its beauty, but it doesn't resonate with me anymore. So, we have choices. We have discernment. We can draw into our lives. And that's really what you're talking about, especially when we start talking about this whole aspect of frequency. Whether we're talking about Rife's frequency generator, or we're talking about a tuning fork, or we're just talking about humming. I've learned something, and I'll love to have your input on this.
Oh my God, I know what you're going to say. I heard you humming before the show, and I just bought a book about healing your body with healing and with humming. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm just so excited that you're bringing this up, because I literally was like, he's healing himself. I wonder if he knows it. But go ahead.
Well, that's one of the things. As a kid, I was suffering from the flu. I was laying in bed and I was moaning and groaning. And one of my elder sister, Cecilia, and my mother were in the room, and I was there making the moaning sounds. And my sister said to my mom, "Mom, make him stop. He sounds terrible." To which, and I don't know how I remembered hearing this, but she said, "No, that's how he heals himself."
That's so cool. That's so cool.
The vibrations that we have, in addition to a self-generating frequency generator, but we also have, and this is still in the realms of frequency and vibration, we have the greatest, no competition to anybody else. Each one of us has the greatest, I'll put it in this context, pharmaceutical company in the universe.
We do.
Better than Eli Lilly or anybody else you could mention. The key is, are you putting into the factory those elements that are helping to generate the chemistry that is needed to sustain a high quality of life? I'll put it in that context. Everything has a vibration, and that's one of the things that I think science has chosen. Even though we would both agree that science has stated that everything is energy. Energy is a vibration, and energy never goes away. It's transformed. Um, and that brings me to this question to you. As a Reiki healer, I learned that when I send out that energy, I do not control it. I don't say for a particular intent. I send it and allow the individual or situation to do with it what it will. And it raises the question about what is healing. My wife and I, my present wife and I, sent Reiki healing to my father's brother, absentee healing. And at the funeral of my father's brother, my mother told us what happened after we'd sent that absentee healing. And it raises the question, okay, then what is healing? Because he died of the cancer. And yet he was able to get angry and throw his medication across the room against the wall, got in his wheelchair, wheeled across the compound where his family lived, or ranch, I guess it was, to have a time of closure, I guess, with his son before he passed away. So going back to that original question, Dr. Sharnael, what is healing?
Yeah, well, healing can be a lot of things. And like I said, if you have made a choice, and or not you, but your dad had already made the choice. One of the things when I'm working with people, and I learned this through my doctor that I interned under, when he works with anyone, the first thing he asks is, what is your name? And he'll muscle test to see if you are really you, because sometimes we can take on other people's stuff and
Mm-hmm.
actually be someone else by accident, especially if you are a counselor or a ministry person, or you listen to other people's problems, or do any kind of massage or things like that. You can actually take on other people's fields accidentally and or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The second question, he says, do you feel like you deserve to be healthy? And or do you choose to be healthy? And if someone tests negative, there's not a lot to fix, because if that's the mindset of the person, even if it's on a subconscious, like in my case with Bob, when he looked in my eye, I had no idea that my subconscious was really choosing death at the time, cancel clear. So I was able to move my subconscious into a different path through vocalizing, through putting my me into it, through putting my feeling into really choosing life,
Mm-hmm.
and reverse that. But when someone is literally dead set, cancel clear, quite literally dead set, that's their choice no matter what. And here's an example: is I've had people who had C, and they went to an MD before they went to me, and some doctor had told them, you have this many amount days to live, or months to live, or years, or whatever. And they came to me, and we did all the things to reverse it, and there was literally no data showing that any of that was even there anymore, completely gone. And they died to the day of that 6 month or that year or that 6 weeks or whatever, because something in them came into agreement with it. And when I see a lot of times, if it's an authority figure, like someone with a doctor, someone with a coat, or some person with letters next to their name, people tend to put more clout or something, or more power to that person or that verbiage. And they literally come into like loyalty contracts or some sort of weird contract where that is now the truth for them. no matter what's going on. And so, again, going back to belief systems, it's really, really important. And what we're actually thinking and finding out what the subconscious is really saying, and not just what the top, the headmaster up here, the frontal lobe, the limbic system, not what that's saying, but what is the heart saying? What is the subconscious saying? And really diving into that. And we can look at those things through like biofeedback, muscle testing. There's a lot of different ways that we can kind of see if maybe something's stuck in there that isn't serving you, that you really truly do choose to change. And that's why I really love biofeedback. And I wanted to touch too on something like, here's an example. When I first went to this doctor, I had been sick for about 6 years. I was traveling doing conference speaking, and I'd written, I think, 3 books up to that point. So was on 6 planes a week, and I did that for 17 years. The last 6, 7 years of that 17 years, I wasn't feeling well at all. I was not doing well at all. And we had went to every Western doctor, because at that time, that was the only thing that I knew growing up in a military household. That was what you do. You go to the doctor, you get the thing, you do all the stuff that the doctor says. And so I had done all the things. And at that point, what it brought me to me, and that path ended up looking like 33 different meds. So I literally had a small suitcase that I would have to travel with everywhere I went that only had my meds in it. And it was mental gymnastics, just figuring out like what to take and what not to take. This goes with this food, this you can't take together, these two got to go at night, this is in the morning, this is with milk, this is with water, this, you got to take 3 days of this and then you got to stop. Just I had charts and maps, and it was ridiculous. And I was teaching a dreams and visions conference in this state, and I got out. I was staying with the host who was hosting me at this conference. I was so literally tired of going to doctors, because just to get a refill, you'd have to go in and even if you weren't feeling sick, you might pick up a hitchhiker while you were there sitting in the waiting room and come home with strep or something. And it was just a full-time job being sick, canceled. And so she had suggested I go see this doctor, and I was nowhere near wanting to see another doctor. I was hopeless at the time. I was depressed at the time. I was not having a fun experience at the time. And so I was just like, no, 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 no. And then they just kept on. So, oh no, this guy's different. He's got all these machines. He does this, he does that. And so I give it a try. I mean, like, what do I got to lose at this point? So I go see the guy. I walk in, he's got the Rife, he's got, the biofeedback, he's got the red light therapy, he's got ozone therapy, he's got PEMF, and all the things I didn't know anything about. And now all of those things I have in my practice. And again, I was full-time ministry at the time, serving, loving on people, trying really hard to help people remember that they're connected to God, that they have purpose, that they have love. And one of the first things he asked me is, who are you? I'm me. Do you want to get well? I actually did. So he had something to go with. He hands me a piece of paper, Richard. And as soon as he hands me the paper, I was hooked up to this machine, and the machine sounded like Pac-Man just died. And I was like, what the heck was that? And he's got this face like, oh no. And he's scratching his head. And it's not the face that you want to see when, you're at the doctor's office. I said, what is it? And he said, well, normally people will read the paper and then there's a response, but I've never had anyone just touch the paper and like Pac-Man dies. And so I was like, well, what's on the paper? So I look at it, and it literally says, Richard, it says, you are loved, you are beautiful, you have a purpose, God loves you, people love you, like all of these beautiful things on the paper. And I'm like, what are you saying? I don't understand. What's the sound? What's happening here? And the doctor looks at me and he says, basically, your body doesn't agree with anything on this paper. And I was like, what? I had no frontal lobe information of actually knowing that I didn't agree with that. And I was super embarrassed, because I was literally like, please don't ask me what I do for a living. Please don't ask me what I do. Please don't ask me. Because I was like, I am not representing God here at all. Like, this is what I teach everywhere I go, and I don't even believe it. Like, what the heck? So I was fully prepared to say, I am a pro bowler or something like that. Because if he asked me what I do, I'm like, no, anything not to make God look bad. But thank God he didn't ask me what I do for a living. So I said, what do I do? What do I do? And mind you, let me tell you, for 3 weeks straight before I had this visit, I had a reoccurring dream, and all that I heard in the dream was, "It's time to meet Will. It's time to meet Will. It's time to meet Will." So I called my office. Who's Will? Who's William? Am I going to a church with a William, a pastor, a Will, a Billy? Everyone kept saying no, and it kept coming back and back and back. And this has a lot to do with your book, by the way, Choices. And I said, okay, whatever. I shelved it. So I'm sitting there in front of this doctor, and he says, "You don't agree with anything in here." And I said, "What do we do?" He takes the paper from me and he takes out a pen and he's like, and he just writes something at the top. He hands it back to me. "Pac-Man doesn't die." I'm like, okay, what's going on? And I looked to see what he wrote. And all he wrote at the top was, "I will." And I was like, I don't get it. And he said, "I want you to get in the mirror every day and I want you to say, I will that I am beautiful. I will that I am lovely. I will that I have a divine purpose. I will that God loves me. I will, I will, I will." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Your will, your choice is 400,000 times stronger than your spirit. You can override God's will with free choice, free will." And I'm just sitting there, and all of a sudden I hear, "It's time to meet Will." And I was like, oh. So I just thought it was crazy that, yeah, of course I knew, like on a cognitive, that we have free will, but I guess I never really thought about like overriding God by just doing whatever I choose. And yes, can we recalculate? And yes, can we change things? But when he did my biofeedback, I had 28 markers for emotional issues, and 86% of all physical issues have to do with emotions and belief systems. So when I started changing my belief system and using some other things like essential oils and some other things that change the frontal lobe and get rid of these, like, I guess, assignments to organs that don't defrag during 3 a.m. to 5 a.m., then I was seeing things shift. And after doing some of this, 16 weeks later, I was off all my meds. I dropped 80 pounds without changing my diet. Because like you said, that protection, that like feeling like someone was going to get me at all times, going through some stuff as a kid that was traumatizing. And I was putting up this weight to keep everybody away and look bigger, like dogs look bigger or cats look bigger when something comes to attack it, their hair gets all big. People do that, just like you said. And but it was about remembering will, remembering love, remembering that we have those choices, like in your book. And does that make sense to you? I mean, I know this resonates
Oh,
with you.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, a question in regards to the dis-ease that we choose to take on, which is what we do. We choose for various reasons. My father, first of all, never liked for me to refer to him as a wise man or a wise guy. But he shared with me some wisdom. One of the things that he said to me is eat, drink, and be merry in moderation, because nobody gets out of this world alive. And
Oh,
of course,
crap.
speaking of the physical body. Okay.
Oh,
So, um, with that statement, since we all know, or at least most of us are aware and conscious of it, I certainly am, that one day this physical body is going to stop functioning, and the spirit, the essence that animates it right now, is going to leave it, like me getting out of my car. All right. I know that that will happen one day. I hope it's a good 30 years from now. I want to live to be 100. I want to outlive my great grandmother who lived to be 100 on my mother's side. However, I also recognize that anything can happen between now and then. And I have made peace with it all and said, look, if today is my day, I'm good with that. If today is my day. I yet at the same time, I have a lot I still want to do. people I want to meet, places I want to go, things I want to do. So, with that being said, recognizing the mortality of the physical body, why is this important for us to remove the dis-ease from the body? I mean, it may seem self-evident, but I want you to I want you to answer the question just the same. Why is it important that we go through these healing modalities and so forth?
So dis-ease occurs in the body because of mindsets, because of physical 3D issues. Um, maybe there's a program in there genetically, which epigenetics is real. We can change genetics. Biofeedback can do that, and a lot of other things can do that. When I mentioned before that 86% of all physical issues are actually emotional. So
Mm-hmm.
I think part of the path is learning or remembering love and remembering how to navigate through the experiences that we're having. And like in my case, I had 28 markers, and in 16 weeks I brought it down to 4. 28 markers of not so great emotions that were somehow lodged in my DNA or in my field, that I was able to recreate a new biofeedback or a new radiation, which was also a new magnetic pull as well. And when you know things can get lodged in the organs, and what I've seen is like, so we're exposed to stimuli all the time. We're exposed to people, to temperatures, to um, all of us are doing things multitasking all the time, and things that we're not even thinking about we're doing as well. Like, we're regulating our heartbeat, and we're hearing, and we're taking temperature of things, and we're making grocery lists in our head, and we're you know doing a lot of things. And women tend to even do it more. They have nothing against men, but they have more things going on with the left and the right brain than the men. Men tend to only have a couple windows open at a time, unless they listen to, some Mozart when they were a kid, or some Bach or something, and did some music or opened up some more of those pathways. But when we have like different things happen to us over those years or experiences, your this is your frontal lobe, and your limbic system sits behind the frontal lobe, and it's the seat of your emotions. And as we are exposed to these stimuli things, some of them can feel terrible, some of them can feel amazing. And if they are like traumatic is one thing, if it were sudden for one thing, if it was something by an authoritative figure, like I mentioned, the doctor saying something terrible over you, or maybe you had a coach, or somebody had a coach that was mean, or a pastor that was mean, or a parent that did something. There's or a combination of all those things, where it's like a parent that did something repetitively, always shocking. I never knew what was going on. I was on eggshell. There's a combination of things. But the stimuli that we're receiving, we don't really need all this information. We don't need to know what the grocery store lady shirt color was, why the music was playing in the background when we went to the grocery store yesterday. So our brain would just be like overload to have all those recordings. So between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. is when we defrag, and that just goes away. It's like, okay, not needed. Let's
Mm.
let's clear out the library. Let's make room for the stuff that's important. If you're not sleeping during 3 to 5, you may not defrag well. If if you're digesting food during that time, you're probably not going to defrag well. If and also something may not defrag if it's one of those 5 things that I mentioned, where it's like repetitive, sudden, traumatic, something by an authoritative figure, or a combination of those things. They may tend to have a little more stick. And so that limbic system can go like, what, this is just too much for her. So I'm going to just like shelf this in an organ for a minute, and we're going to clear out all this other stuff. And she can deal with this later when she's in a better mindset, or when she sleeps better, or when she's not digesting, or whatever. And so it could go in a knee, or a thyroid, or an arm, or whatever. And it could be dormant for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. But after that time period, if you run into something similar,
Mhm.
along the lines of those traumatic things, then, and you bump into that, then basically that could open up the dormant path to be now in full operation of some sort of signal, and signals looking like symptoms. And so now there's a knee issue, and you go to the doctor, and the doctor's like, hey, let's just give you a pill that turns off the pain. And it's like, no, let's find out what is there for a reason so we can figure out like how to be different and how to not have the symptoms. Let's look at the root cause.
Yeah.
I think it's really ridiculous that if you had a car that needed oil, and maybe it was low or needed a change, and there's a blinker going on or some beeping noise, and you go bring it to a car specialist, and the mechanic's like, oh yeah, let's just unplug that thing. You don't need that noise. You don't need that light, you know. And then you drive off, and 2 weeks later your car blows up, cancel clear. So what I like to do is get to the root. That's what naturopaths do. I know you're very much in the root issues, whether it's emotional, physical, spiritual. And
Mm.
so with dis-ease in the organ, you can use things like frequency, rife. You can use essential oils, which all have frequency. And what I really love about essential oils is it'll bypass the olfactory system, bypass the frontal lobe, goes into the limbic system, and basically says, hey, those assignments you had to those multiple areas, let's just get rid of them. And we're going to release those assignments tonight or today. And I didn't have to, when I went through that 16 weeks of using essential oils and doing the mantras and all that stuff, I didn't even have to sit down and do talk therapy. I didn't have to relive the trauma. I didn't have to say like, because all that does is kind of reinforce things. I'm not saying that you shouldn't talk about things, but when that's all you talk about is in second grade, you didn't make cheerleader and you're still pissed off. It's like, come on, dude, like move on. So, and some people, those things are really important to them. And some things it's like perspective. You got to be like, in the realm of the world, is that a big deal? That someone didn't like you in second grade? It's like, come on, life is so much bigger and beautiful. And like
Yeah.
you said, your perspective is gorgeous and beautiful. Like all the wonderful things that are going on in life. So when I did those things 16 weeks later, yeah, dropped 80 pounds, didn't change my diet, got off all my meds, had a complete different mindset, literally, of how to create my world. And that's whenever I had the encounter. Maybe that shift allowed my frequency to come up to a higher realm where I have a visitation now and give me even more thing. And so it's kind of like a Kleenex box. I look at a Kleenex box. Sometimes we don't know the end. And that's why faith is so important. It's like sometimes seek ye first the kingdom of God, and then all these things will be added unto you. Sometimes seeking ye first, where's the kingdom? Inside. When we seek ye first the kingdom, I always tell people, do the first three things that come to your mind that you haven't done, that you really need to do, and then come back to me.
Mm.
What are the top three things that you haven't done that you have really just put on the back burner that are so important? Like call your mom, or go return this thing, or go bring your car in to get its oil change, or whatever. Make it, I'm just making stuff up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you take that first Kleenex, you don't know what's coming up next. But guess what? Another Kleenex pops up, and then you take that, seek ye first. Another one pops up, and it's kind of like the whole Indiana Jones thing. It's like, you know what? Take that step, and the bridge just shows up, and the path is there, and here we are. And you'll get there, and you'll know. But dis-ease is a choice, but also sometimes subconsciously we don't even know those signals are there because of something that happened, and we can clear that. We can find out what's going on. We can look at what is the subconscious saying, what is in the DNA, what can we clear? Do you even want to be cleared? Are you ready to let go of dis-ease? Are you ready to live in ease?
Yeah.
And people who say things like this is hard, cancel clear, they have a tendency to create tumors.
Yeah.
It's been proven cysts and tumors are so when I feel like I'm about to say that, I literally switch it and replace it. This is fun and easy. This is fun and easy. This is fun and easy. And the more you practice, the more that is your default, instead of the old program that I used to have, which, oh, there's always something. Now it's like,
Yeah.
this is fun and easy, and everything happens for me. Everything happens for me. Everything, God has my back. God, I am God in action, making good choices, and things come to me easily. And, things like that. Is we can brainwash ourselves into positivity instead of brainwashing ourselves into a negative thing. And
Yeah.
it does take practice, but practice is worth it.
Yeah, I love the concept of a half glass full or a half glass empty. And of course, I will certainly say that my glass is half full. But my question, more than anything else, as to whether it is half full or half empty, is what's it full of? And guess what? You get to choose whatever. For me, it might be, oh, I don't know, Bailey's Irish Cream. It might be one of my favorite other drinks, that kind of thing. Maybe just water. But it's like, look, my glass is half full and it's half full of, you know, and away you go. And then, of course, you made the comment earlier about there's always something. And makes me think of Rosanna Dana on Saturday Night Live, how she would go through her little speech, her little monologue, and then Jane would come in and say, "No, we were talking about this, not that," which she would usually respond with, "Well, it's always something." But in my case, when I say that, it is always something because life is happening.
It's
And
fun.
yeah, and it's a blast. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to say that it's a beer and Skittles all the time, but the fact of the matter is that everything, this is what helps me get through a lot of things. Everything is temporary. When I had my let's see, I had my gallbladder removed a couple of years ago. It was infected, and I had a golf ball size a gallstone, and they removed it before the process began. And I felt this little pain in my gut one afternoon, thinking, "Oh, that's just the sandwich I just had. That's all it is." And it didn't get any better until around 10 o'clock that night. And the wife says, "No, we're going to the ER." And of course, that's what it was. And I kept telling myself, not out of a sense of I need to focus, but it was like intuitive. I'm going to be on the other side before I know it. I'll be on the other side of this before I know. And I was on the other side of it before I knew it. And any other circumstance, everything in this world is temporary. However, sometimes because of our choices, it's less temporary than other things. And I think that's one of the other things that helps me through, of course, has for years, but I become more conscious of it, is that aspect that nothing lasts forever, not even life. And you can have it last as long as you want or as short as you want. My father was 91 when he left. Okay. And he gave us six kids, now five, and my mother. He gave us all so much. And I know now he knows that. But when he was here, he did not really feel that. He felt as though my mother was the one who contributed. And in an interview I did not long ago, someone shared a perspective in that regard. And it was like, okay, I know what he meant, but the subtext of what he was saying about how he didn't feel like he had an influence and he was giving all the credit to my mother was actually, there was a truism to that. Not because he was an absent father, but because that's the role of the mother.
Sure.
And that's normal. That is part of the process. So it's like, okay, now I get it. And I'm sure he felt that too. It was just it was from him. For him, it was coming from a certain level of frustration, I'm sure, in that regard. But I got to tell you, I share this often. At my father's memorial a year and a half ago, um, uncoordinated by five of us, and the other folks who spoke, the theme for his memorial, you could have given the theme of, "Dad, we would not be who we are if it hadn't been for you." And not just biologically.
Yes.
I mean, it was just incredible how each one of us would share. and how they would talk about how the difference and there were things that I didn't even know about my father that the others shared. As far as my brother being taught how to change the oil in the car, and that one time Dad said, "Hey, go out and go ahead and change the oil, Mike." And he forgot to put the plug back in when he put the 5 quarts of
Oh,
oil in,
shoot.
and he thought Dad was going to kill him. And Dad comes out, looks around, going, "What happened?" I forgot to put the plug in. So, all right, well, let's get this cleaned up and then we'll do this again. Didn't get angry. He was trying to teach him.
Yeah.
And one of my sisters made the comment that he was, from her observation, and I wouldn't disagree with her, he was honest to a fault. He was
Yeah.
the most honest man she knew. And they have all my sisters, including my sister who passed, all married very honest, upright, supportive, caring, loving men. And I refer to them not as brothers in law, they are my brothers.
Oh,
And that is what is so nice about our family. Um, we're talking with Sharnael, and we're talking about her book and the work that she does. But when we come back here, I want to talk about one final thing before we wrap things up because I think it's important. We are talking about the science of miracles, remembering the frequency of love here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, and we're talking with the Dr. Sharnael, and she has something rather interesting that you're going to want to get, and that is a copy of the book, The Science of Miracles. I also want to talk with you, Dr. Sharnael, about True TV. Can you share with us how that came about and what it is all about? I mean, it sounds self-explanatory, but I want you to explain it anyway.
yes, yes. Well, I did television for years, and we've moved everything online, like a lot of people.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and I one day we'll have to talk about this encounter. I have another show to do, and I'm sure you do too. But I I had this encounter, and the two beings there, one was named True and one was named Living. And so there was a big download, a lot of it, everything in this book and more. The Science of Miracles, Remembering the Frequency of Love, is the result of what was given to me. And one of the things I really understood is when we lie, um, there are chemicals that are released from our brain into our body that our body marinates in, which can cause us to be sick, cancel clear, or get old faster, or gray our hair, or affect our immunity, cancel clear, all those things. And if we're marinating in that like on a regular, that's going to cause some issues and dis-ease. On the opposite, um, when we're living true and embodying truth, and I don't mean just like, oh, do these jeans make my butt look big, and you tell a little white lie or something. Is like, yeah, you talked about your dad being truthful to a fault. Like, when we live true, we also have some chemistry that's released that causes us to be supersonic strength and great immunity, and a lot of positive things to skin and cortisols, and um even collagen, and hair, and just all kinds of beautiful things that help our body. And going back to ancient scriptures, if you think about Job and what he went through, one of the things that he said was, but my integrity was my protection. And that word integrity means to be integrated, mind, body, and spirit. And yes, there were things that happened all around him, but he wasn't killed, and he didn't have some of the things that happened. I mean, yes, he was on you know the front end of watching a lot of things really bad happen in his life, and we don't have a lot of control about what other people do, but his integrity was his protection, and it can be ours too. And so living true has been my mission since that encounter. I mean, to even going to Target and getting home 20 minutes later and unpacking things and seeing a pair of socks for $2 that I didn't buy, and looking on the receipt and going, well, how did this socks get in my bag? And then I call them and go, hey, can you just like add $2.50 to my credit card real quick. They're like, no, you got to come in and you're going to have to buy it. And, I'm not going to let $2.50 ruin my integrity or my biofield. So I'm like, this is going to quote cost me to literally get in traffic and drive 20 minutes and stand in line and do whatever to live righteousness or in right standing. But living a lie, telling a lie, doing things, even as little as going to the grocery store or not going to the grocery store today, or going at 5 instead of 3. And maybe you go to a different one today than you normally go to because you listen to that God in you and be and live God in action. So the podcast is just another arm of living true for me. My practice is called Living True Wellness, and the podcast is Dr. Sharnael's True TV, because I bring on people who are speaking about truths and talking about, physical issues, mental issues, emotional issues, politics, cultural things, hidden things, disclosure things, supernatural things, miracle things. And we kind of talk about all the things, living true. And that's a broad spectrum in this world and in experience right now. And everyone's truth can be a little bit different, which is interesting when we have diverse guests that that's their truth. And I'm like, sure, go for it. Like I'm love where everyone's at, and I accept where everyone's at and do all I can to not be in judgment, because that's their experience. Who am I to say that that's not true to them? So but yeah, our podcast is every Thursday at noon Central. And we love having fun guests on that do, teach on different things and talk about different things. It's a fun thing.
Absolutely. And you can go to drsharnael.com. That's drsharnael.com. We will be linked to that website so that you can find out more about the work she's doing, get a copy of the book, The Science of Miracles, Remembering the Frequency of Love, find out more about True TV. Add one more thing here that came to mind, and that is, no matter what it is that you're dealing with, there is a passage, and we've kind of quoted here and there, that refers to perfection. In the New Testament, he is quoted as saying, "Be ye perfect," King Jimmy here, "as your Father in heaven is perfect." And I pondered that, and I wondered, well, what is perfection in that context? What does he mean? Now, I didn't go to my Strong's Concordance. I went to my intuition. But I also went to the Old Testament. And I remember, of course, and it's probably in various passages throughout, where God is talking and he's saying, he, she, it, I am that I am. Now, God is neither good nor bad, right or wrong, light or dark. God is all. And I thought, okay, well, if perfection isn't the duality that we have been living with for thousands of years, that must mean that perfection is just to be.
Yes.
So if you are dealing with certain issues, certain diseases that certainly Dr. Sharnael could assist you with, or you could read more about and find out more about through the Science of Miracles, that's terrific. But know this, that in spite of or because of what you are going through right now, you are, at this moment, you are perfect by your just being. And that's something that I know a lot of people have a lot of trouble with, because they equate perfection with the dualistic concepts. And it's like I've been trying to eliminate the words success and failure from vocabulary, because there is no success or failure. There is just life experiences and lessons learned.
Yes.
Period. That's part of the reason, in my opinion, part of the reason why we're here is to learn lessons that we chose, that we wanted to learn coming into this world. And at the same time, we're also here together, all 8.5 billion of us together, to learn to live and love and work and play together. And none of this other stuff. I mean, this is just It's just silliness. It's like 2-year-olds playing, and knock it off. That's all I got to say. Is just knock it off. Uh, but I want to thank you for being a part of the work that we are doing here, and for the work that you're doing through, of course, not only True TV, but the science of miracles, remembering the frequency of love. And I thank you for being a part of Tell Me Your Story today.
Wow. Well, I am just, the honor is mine. The pleasure is mine. You are a beautiful person with a beautiful frequency, and it was such a pleasure to be with you today and your guests. And you guys, I love this platform, and I love being able to do things online because obviously I don't have to get on a plane and go places. But if anything stuck out to you or you have questions, feel free to text me or call or go online and find me in social media, because I do miss like the hugs and seeing someone visual. I'm very visual. I like to see faces and connect with you guys and send you good vibes. And I love to hear from you and work with you in any way that I can help serve.
Yeah. Well, we are greatly appreciative of your part in what we're doing here. And I do have 3 final questions I ask all of my guests.
Uh-huh.
I will ask those of you, but first I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m. That's 9 programs. 9 different conversations, 9 different topics, and we certainly hope that you will listen to some of them, if not all of them. We also have them on podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry. We're on YouTube where you can watch these conversations. We hope that you will. Just a reminder, too, of those broadcast times. They're streamed live at richarddugan.com. A reminder that Choices 5 Steps for Life is available. It is out in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle, Audible to come at amazon.com. There are links on my website, richarddugan.com, to Amazon, as well as to PayPal, because if you would like to be a part of the work that we are doing financially, we would be gratefully appreciative. A PayPal account is there for your security as well as ours, as well as the link on the website, richarddugan.com, and you can contribute in that fashion. And we thank you, thank you, thank you for those who have helped and for those who will help. We also ask that you take some time during this, the decade of perfect vision, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still small voice. We go to our final 3 questions for a very special guest, as we do at the end of every program. And those questions start with this one. Who is Sharnael?
Oh gosh. Yeah, this is a whole different subject, but I'm starting. My name means it's Hebrew, and I was born at 3:33, and the doctor who delivered me was Dr. Harold Messenger. My name
Wow.
means, yeah, it means Rose of God and Warrior of God, and I did not even find that out until I was in my mid-20s. So I feel like I am doing everything I can to remember both masculine and feminine sides of God, and to present that in love and in truth everywhere I go.
What gets you up in the morning?
Helping people, remembering love, my family, of course, my animals, love, truth, and I really do love seeing people. I feel like my vision or my destiny is helping other people find theirs and getting their integrity and their wholeness back.
Hmm.
That really lights me up.
And finally, what was your best day?
Oh, wow. Gosh, why am I emotional? Any day. Sorry.
It's all right.
Any day with my family, with all my family home, and my grandmother who's now passed, and my parents who are still with me, thank God, and just anytime. I love being with my family. Those are my best days.
Well, Dr. Sharnael, I want to thank you so much for being a part of Tell Me Your Story and for sharing your story. Not only that, but also about True TV as well as your book release, and that happens to be The Science of Miracles. Folks, please get a copy. Go through Amazon, go through her website, which is drsharnael.com. That is DRSHARNAEL.com. We will be linked to that website as well. And I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story New Paradigms for a New World. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to long. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, continue to be happy. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.